Hi and welcome to Polish Oneself. In this video you will learn about the genitive case, which in Polish is called dopełniacz. It answers the questions kogo, czego. This is a case that is used very often in Polish. That's why you should take some time to learn when and how to use it. So let's start with the situations in which it is necessary. First is expressing possession. This is simply the equivalent of apostrophe S in English. Take a look at these examples. To jest dom mojego brata. To jest dom mojego brata. This is my brother's house. In this phrase, my brother is the owner. And notice that in my brother, the possessive pronoun my is also in genitive case. A similar situation is in the sentence as well. Dom mojej siostry jest mniejszy niż mój. Dom mojej siostry jest mniejszy niż mój. My sister's house is smaller than mine. The next situation requiring the genitive case is the verb rection. This happens when the direct objects, which are the object of an action in the accusative case, but in a negative sentence. In other words, whenever a verb requires accusative case, but the sentence is negative, it is the genitive that replaces it. So we have, for example, lubię herbatę. In a negative version will become nie lubię herbaty. This grammar rules occurs only when the accusative case is caused by the verb. If there is a preposition between the verb and the object, the case stays the same. For example, patrzę na nią, I'm looking at her. Nie patrzę na nią, I'm not looking at her. The genitive case is also important when we use numerals. Here's the logic behind it. Let's take the word dog. So we have jeden pies, dwa psy, trzy psy, cztery psy. So far it's the nominative case. Then it's the genitive from 5 to 21. So for example, 5 psów, 10 psów, 12 psów, 21 psów. The next numbers require again the nominative case until 24. After this, the logic of the previous line simply repeats. Genitive is also applied after words such as a lot of, few, a couple of, many, a bit, which in Polish would be dużo, mało, kilka, wiele, trochę. Tam jest dużo ludzi. Tam jest dużo ludzi. Mam kilka pytań. Mam kilka pytań. Chcesz trochę ciasta? Chcesz trochę ciasta? There are many prepositions that apply this case. Here's the list of almost all of them. I will make a separate video with the prepositions that rely on this case. Wyszedłem z domu bez parasola. Wyszedłem z domu bez parasola. Jestem u Marka od środy. Jestem u Marka od środy. Next we have the verbs. Here I will present only some of them that came to my mind. Let's see 3 of them. Bardzo boję się ciemności. Bardzo boję się ciemności. Każdy lubi słuchać muzyki. Każdy lubi słuchać muzyki. Żądamy zwrotu pieniędzy. Żądamy zwrotu pieniędzy. The last example brings us to the next situation, which is an equivalent of the preposition of in English. It's often in the film titles, like for example, Lord of the Rings, Władca pierścieni, or Milczenie owiec. The last situation that often applies this case is when we express time and the dates. When in a sentence, the number of the day of a month can occur in both nominative or genitive case, if the date describes when the action happened. The month and the year will apply the genitive case. 1 maja 2021 roku. In sentences, we might also use time expressions that apply the genitive case, like for example, pewnego dnia, one day, ostatniego dnia, the last day, or tego wieczora, that evening. Now I will try to explain how we form the genitive case for nouns and adjectives. For the adjectives, let's take as example trudny and miękki. And now let's take a look at the table to see how their forms change in use. You might notice that the additional sound E is necessary when we follow K or G. Nie zdałem tego trudnego egzaminu. Nie zdałem tego trudnego egzaminu. Potrzebuję tej miękkiej poduszki. Potrzebuję tej miękkiej poduszki. Robimy wiele trudnych rzeczy. Robimy wiele trudnych rzeczy. So now let's get to the nouns which are much more troublesome. This table shows all regular endings that the genitive case has for the nouns. We will first concentrate on the singular number. First we have the a ending. It occurs with the nouns of neuter gender. For example, a lake, jezioro, becomes jeziora. A chair, krzesło, becomes krzesła. And all verbal nouns, which are simply names of actions that derive from verbs that they name. In English it is represented by the ing form. For example, robienie, robienia. The genitive ending a is also common in the masculine gender, mostly with nouns that name a human being, as well as living creatures that end with the consonant. Człowiek, człowieka. Names of nationalities like Polak, Polaka. Masculine representatives of professions, kucharz, kucharza. And also with the male names, Piotr, Piotra, Tomasz, Tomasza, Marek. For this name, as well as many other nouns that end with ek, not only we have to add a, but also we must drop the e letter, which gives us Marek, Marka. This ending is also applied for male animals. Pies, psa, kot, kota, kruk, kruka. Some of inanimate masculine objects have this ending as well in genitive. Telewizor, telewizora, portfel, portfela, koszyk, koszyka. The last group of words that applies this ending would be names of cars and other trademarks. For example, Ford, Forda, Golf, Golfa, Mercedes, Mercedesa. The next ending is u, which is applied for inanimate masculine objects, just like the previous ending a, might be a bit problematic for you at the beginning. Barszcz, barszczu, sok, soku, wstyd, wstydu, rok, roku, park, parku, sklep, sklepu. At the beginning it might be a bit difficult to know which ending should be applied for objects, but with some practice you'll start to notice the right patterns, therefore the risk of error will get lower and lower. The next one we have is the ending. For masculine gender it applies to nouns that, just like feminine gender, end with a. Mężczyzna, mężczyzny. Artysta, artysty. Zabójca, zabójcy. But the most often it will be applied to feminine words that contain these letters in their last syllable. Noc, nocy. Para, pary. Mucha, muchy. The next ending is i, which is parallel to the previous one. In masculine gender, the words end also with the letter a that follows the letters k and g. Włóczęga, włóczęgi. Rozrabiaka, rozrabiaki. Coming back to the feminine gender, words that have all these sounds in the last syllable will have this ending as well. For those with the yellow marker, their genitive, both singular and plural, will be the same. Let's see. So we have nominative singular, historia, Nominative plural, historie. And the genitive for both of them, historii. And the same here. Tradycja, tradycje, tradycji. Then we have words with those 3 letters in the last syllable. Waga, wagi. Walka, walki. Kula, kuli. For the feminine words with these short, soft sounds, they become longer. And again, their plural and singular genitive forms are the same. Dłoń, dłonie, dłoni. Odpowiedź, odpowiedzi. Nić, nici. Now we can pass to the plural number, but we're staying for now with the same ending. So for the feminine words marked in blue, it has just been covered. So I can go to the masculine gender that in singular ends with the soft sound ñ. For example, koń, konie, koni. Drań, dranie, drani. The next plural genitive ending that appears very often is ów. It is applied with nouns that in plural form end with I, and with some names of peoples, nations, and some other plural people nouns that end with owie. For example, dom, domy, domów. Samochód, samochody, samochodów. Worek, worki, we drop the letter I, worków. Bark, barki, barków. Ojciec, ojcowie, ojców. Przodek, przodkowie, przodków. Some masculine nouns in plural take the ending. It applies to those with arze, erze, and other similar endings. Mostly they are names of professions or some devices. First singular, piekarz, plural, piekarze, piekarzy. Żołnierz, żołnierze, żołnierzy. Przedłużacz, przedłużacze, przedłużaczy. Odświeżacz, odświeżacze, odświeżaczy. And there are also a couple of feminine nouns that apply this ending in plural. Noc, noce, nocy. Pomoc, pomoce, pomocy. Their singular genitive ending was mentioned previously, and it was the same ending, The last type of ending for genitive in plural is dropping a couple of letters at the end. For example, for name of nations that end with anie, it will be dropping the last 2 letters. Amerykanie, Amerykan, Rosjanie, Rosjan. For the nouns in the neuter gender, not only we have to drop the last letter, but also add a sound in order to pronounce it more easily. See the examples. Lustro, lustra, plural nominative, luster. So here we had to add the letter e. Okno, okna, okien. This time it was the ie sounds. Światło, światła, świateł. A neuter word that is slightly different from the previous ones would be, for example, dziecko, dzieci, and the genitive also dzieci. So I guess it can be counted as this category. The last group of words that drops sounds for genitive in plural will be the feminine gender nouns, which have the ending and I in the genitive singular, and precisely the ones that belong to this category. For example, nominative singular, lina, singular genitive, liny, and the plural genitive, lin. Kobieta, kobiety, kobiet. Warga, which means lip. Wargi, warg. For the words with the K in the last syllable, we need to add the E sound to pronounce it more easily. Marka, marki, marek. Łódka, łódki, łódek, pralka, pralki, pralek. This rule also has some exceptions, like for example the word fight, walka, walki, walk. Here adding the e sound was not necessary. That's all for this video. I hope you find it useful. In spite of the fact that I haven't mentioned some of the rules or exceptions that we have in Polish, I still think that this video can give you a good grasp on the genitive case in the Polish language. See you in the next video.